standpoint. But the reason why I ran for the U.S. Senate is pretty straightforward. I wanted to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I know you have to be there two weeks to do that. All kidding aside, this is the greatest country in the history of the world.
It is.
And, you know, I know that not because I read about it in some article or because I saw some special on the Discovery Channel. I know that from first-hand experience. I am but a generation removed from a very different life. I'm proud of my heritage. My parents were born in Cuba. But they were born into a very different place than the one I was born into. And the country of their birth is pretty much like everywhere else on earth, where who you are and what you're going to be in life is decided for you before you're even born. If you don't come from the right parents and you don't run in the right social circles, there's only so far you can go, no matter how hard you work and how much you try. Compare that to the nation I was born into, to a place where the only limits to your ambition, the only limits to your dreams, is your talent and your willingness to work hard. That's exceptional. That's unique. That's unparalleled. The truth is that our constitutional republic, based on the notion of natural law, the belief that all of us have inalienable rights that come from our Creator, not from our government, has made us the freest people in all of human history. And our free enterprise system has made us the most prosperous people in human history. If I had a choice, what I would get to be in the entire history of mankind, time and time again, I would choose to be an American in the 20th and 21st century. Yeah. We are still the greatest nation on earth. Yes. I would never trade places with anybody else on the planet. But our greatness was not automatic. It was not by accident. And it will not remain in place on its own. It requires us to do what every generation of American before us has done. And that is to confront the challenges to our exceptionalism and solve them. And that's what all the Americans that came before us did. And that's why every generation of American is left the next better off. Well, now it's our turn. And we face challenges. They're not difficult to understand. It begins with the fact that our economy is not growing. Our economy is not creating jobs. It's stagnant. It's not creating growth the way we are used to here in America. The reason is because too many people in Washington and in politics don't understand how jobs are created. Jobs are not created by presidents. They're not created by U.S. senators. They're not created by government bureaucracies or even government spending. Jobs are created by people, everyday people, who open up businesses or grow existing businesses or invent brand new industries. That's what creates jobs. And it's not happening. Our economy is not growing. The second challenge we face is a debt. $13 trillion and growing. 40 cents out of every dollar they now spend in the federal government is borrowed from my children and your children and grandchildren. A debt that puts us closer every day to a Greece-like day of reckoning. That's where we're headed. And third is national security threats, as serious as any we've ever faced. We face enemies that don't wear uniforms and who hide behind women, children, and civilians. They hide in churches and synagogues and mosques. Yep. And they don't engage in warfare the way we're used to. Sometimes they're lone wolves that operate by themselves, inspired by Al-Qaeda, not even directed by them. We also have nation-states that are our enemies, who desire to acquire a nuclear capacity and to be able to deliver it on the shores of the United States. Iran is making progress not just in developing a nuclear weapon, but in developing a missile that can strike the east coast of the United States. And North Korea has already developed its nuclear weapon. And they are moving rapidly towards developing a delivery system to strike the west coast of the United States. So our challenges are very simple. We need leaders in government that will help put government in its proper place so that it grows our economy, deals squarely with our national debt, and ensures that America remains the strongest nation on earth. Because the world is a safer place when America is the strongest nation on earth. Yeah. The one I want to focus on with you today, and it's the one we've been talking about over the last 2 weeks all throughout Florida, is job creation and what we can do to help create jobs. And you need to look no further than the current debate in Washington, D.C. to understand what it takes. First of all, as we speak right now, if nothing changes, in 2011, every single person in this room will see their taxes increased. Now, the Democratic majority says, well, we don't want to increase your taxes. We're just going to cut taxes for the middle class. Let the rich pay more. Here's the problem. What they define as rich is what we define as job creators. Because their definition of rich is anyone that makes more than $200,000 a year. Let me tell you who that is. That's any small business organized under the S-Corp statutes that has more than $200,000 a year in revenue. That represents about 80% of the manufacturers in the United States. That represents about every single small business that I know of. $200,000 a year in revenue for a company is not a lot of money. There are a lot of Americans who are employed by people who fall under that category. You know how many? 20 million Americans. 20 million Americans would fall under that definition. And 20 million employees would fall under that definition. Their employers would be hit by this. Now, I've traveled the state and I've talked to a lot of job creators. I have yet to have a single one of them come to me and say, what I am looking for to grow the economy is an increase in taxes. And you're not going to hear that. This old-fashioned debate about, oh, it's the old Republican ideas, cut taxes on the poor, this old-school class warfare argument, people see through it now, and they understand. It's not about government not needing revenue. Of course government needs revenue. You want the strongest military in the world? That costs money. You want a safety net so that people who cannot take care of themselves, we can help them? That costs money. The only way you're ever going to get that money is to have an economy that generates revenue for you. And the only way the economy is going to generate more revenue for your government so it can pay down its debt and provide its essential services is not through higher tax rates. It's through growth. It's through getting more people employed. You want more people to buy houses and consumer goods? They need jobs. You want more people visiting the attractions in Central Florida? They need jobs. You want more people to not need unemployment benefits? They need jobs. And jobs are not created by the federal government, except for the census and all the regulators they hired to oversee the health care plan. That's not a jobs program, though. We need to provide certainty for the private sector. And that begins by extending the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts and making them permanent, because that creates certainty. Now people know what the rules are going to be. There are other things we need to do. This health care bill has to be replaced.
Yes.
These ideas are too expensive, and they don't work. Millions of Americans will lose their health insurance. Thousands of small businesses in Florida are not filling vacancies in their workforce, sometimes even laying people off, like a businessman that I met in Tampa on Monday, because they're afraid to trigger the mandate. Seniors on Medicare Advantage, 700,000 of them in Florida, 2 of them are my parents, will see their benefits affected because of this. This health care bill is a disaster. And I'm proud that in this race in Florida, I am the only candidate running for U.S. Senate who pledges and who go to Washington, D.C. and replace this health care bill with things that work and cost a lot less money. What are those things? Those things are requiring hospitals to show transparency in how much they charge. Those things are encouraging medical records that you own, your own electronic medical record that you own, and take with you anywhere in the country that you are, but you own it, not the government or some hospital. What are those things? Allowing every American and every business in America to buy health insurance from any company in America, no matter what state they're located in. Allowing individuals who decide to buy their own health insurance to have the same tax benefit that their employer would get if their employer bought it for them. And allowing small businesses to pool together with other small businesses to create buying pools, associated plans, that can buy health insurance from any company in America. One of the questions I always get is, how come the Republicans are against everything in Washington, D.C.? Well, because they're all a bunch of bad ideas.
Exactly.
There are alternatives to these ideas. There are things we can do to provide. There is an alternative to Obamacare. There is an alternative to this health care bill. It doesn't have to cost that much money, and we can insure a lot more people. What else is scaring job creators? An energy tax, couched in terms of environmental language. But what it is an energy tax. Simply put, it would make your electric bill higher, your gas bill higher, your fueling of your vehicles higher. It would increase the cost of living and the cost of doing business in America. In short, it may succeed in making us the cleanest third world economy on the planet.